Alrighty, got another match here for the 2025 championships. This one between Heron and syouhisya. 28th playing the 37th seed. Although I believe syouhisya was in semifinals last year. They definitely outperformed their current ranking. Let's see what we got here. Looks like a pretty run-of-the-mill kingdom. You got draw with Barge, Cursed Village, Herald, Root Cellar. Villages are Village, Cursed Village, Hamlet, Herald, Trashing, Ratcatcher, Sentry, plus buy, Barge, Nomads, Hamlet. So definitely got everything you need. Triumphal Arch probably encourages a slightly more monolithic deck that just clicks a few of the same cards. Don't think this is a Cursed Village Kingdom. I mean, it could be. You could play with a bunch of Cursed Villages and like Nomads or Flag Bearer for payload. But I imagine it's more efficient to just draw your deck the normal way with Barges and Heralds, probably. How to open. Herald has the Heron has the 5/2, which surely looks better here. You can open with Sentry. Uh, Shohisha has the 4/3, and I generally don't like Flag Bearer so much turn one in a situation like this, but it's going to pay off because their opponent does not have the 4/3 and can't take the flag back. But yeah, Heron opens with Sentry and nothing, makes a lot of sense. Does not get the really good draw. In fact, pretty poor turn three, all things considered. Sentry's one of those cards that you'd rather find turn three than turn four because like you play it here turn four, you're going to trigger a shuffle, and then Sentry's not going to be in the new shuffle. Whereas the reverse is true turn three. You play it turn three, you trash two cards, and then you're immediately getting back around to Sentry as soon as turn four. But if not, then you'll see it turn five. Do you trash the Nomads? You don't need the money here. Probably not. Try to discard it because it's not a useful card at the moment. Trash Copper, discard Nomads, and I'm thinking you buy a Herald and top deck it. With 6 money, you could buy a Herald, overpay one to top deck Herald using the overpay effect, and pay off the one debt. Let's go for a second Sentry. Fair enough, that works too. Heron, super thin. Probably got to be thinking about payload right now. Barge. I mean, so Barge is plus buy, which is something you want if you're about to start scaling up. But I think this deck is thin enough to not need Barge worth the draw. I think Nomads just look like a better card than Barge at the moment. Or even Hamlet, perhaps. We'll see. Alright, Show can trash this flag bearer and take the flag back, which will be nice. I wonder what they're contemplating there. I would think trash Copper plus flag bearer looked fairly obvious. And then Nomads plus Hamlet. Yep. And I would expect a Hamlet here from Heron as well, because they got two terminals in their deck and no villages as of yet. Yeah, see, it's kind of an awkward spot. It is not clear that you actually trash the copper, and in fact, they choose not to. They're quite low on money. I think where that barge, say, a nomads, then maybe you could just by trashing the copper. And I don't think you trash this. Yeah, I think nomads is like there's a nice trash for benefit effect, but it's still a decent card to just have in your deck. And I still like to look at Herald. I mean, pretty soon Harold's going to hit close to 100% of the time once these coppers are gone. And I think in the short term, Harold just does a decent job splitting the difference between draw and actions. Like if you added a barge, you wouldn't be able to play everything. It's the bottom card of Nomads, I think, or Flag Bearer. It's something that gives money, right? Yeah, it's a Flag Bearer. And I figured out how to snooze Dropbox notifications really fast. I'm going to get a bunch of them. Where is that option? There we go. I found it. Okay, where was I? Harold manages to still have one estate in the deck despite having two sentries and a rat catcher. Uh, Surely that cannot be long for this world. Yeah, rat catcher will trash it here. I think the one thing this kingdom actually is kind of lacking is efficient payload. Like if this kingdom just had an ironworks or something, these decks would be scaling up much quicker. Probably the best payload here is just nomads, which it's cheap but not super effective. Yeah, it's not great when the best payload is a terminal silver. That is one of the draws of all time. Who do I think is in the lead? Probably Show at a glance. I don't think this barge has done much of anything. Hmm. Nomads, Hamlet, Herald. Final answer. Or actually, no, maybe two Nomads and two Hamlets, actually. Um, that's adding more payload than the Herald. And I don't think you need the draw as much as Heron because you get this barge and you're overdrawing. They go with my first option, but I'd since revised it, and I guess I didn't get the memo. Yeah, a Hamlet would help with trashing. There is the backup option of Ratcatcher, which lets you trash a card from your hand. Uh, but in general, one of the big problems with Sentry is those like last two or so jump cards in your deck. How do you line up the Sentry with those cards when they just have to be like a very particular spot in your deck for the Sentry to find them? And one solution is a card like Hamlet that can discard cards. You just discard the coppers, then you play the Sentry right when you're coming up on your empty or almost empty discard pile, and then you can know for sure that the Sentry will hit the copper. The classic base set case for this, I think, is Poacher plus Sentry, where once your Poacher is activated, uh, it can discard coppers and estates, and the Sentry can hit them. It does not feel like turn 10. Nomads are empty. There are none in the trash, and there appear to be three in Heron's deck. Does Shohisha have? 7 nomads. That's probably a good thing, I think. I mean, it's such an awkward payload card, but with Triumphal Arch around, winning the split of that first empty pile means now you can pile drive Hamlet or Herald or whatever else, and you'll naturally be scoring a bunch of points. And then the pile pressure is going to be much more acute for your opponent, who's not naturally going to get as many points just over the process of building. All right, Heron seems rather desperate for payload. Okay, well, having 7 nomads in the deck has come back to bite us as Show has another dud. Hamlet Herald? Could be Cursed Village, actually. It would be a whole lot of draw in this deck. Yeah, actually, Cursed Village sounds really nice right now, doesn't it? Just given. I was initially thinking Cursed Village was not on the table. It looked worse to me than like Heralds and Barges. But given the composition of this deck, I would expect Cursed Village to draw a whole heck of a lot. Nope, they just go with Hamlet and Herald. I mean, the upside of this is it's naturally going to help you on the Triumphal Arch front. Interesting that they top deck the gold. I don't think it's going to matter super much. All right, Heron still has a bunch of coppers left, although, I mean, given how they're drawing, it's not even clear that you want to trash those coppers all so much right now. Sentries lining up the Herald hits, although I think Shohisha is actually 100% for Herald to hit anyway, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say every single card in this deck is an action card. There's 3 coppers missing from the trash, all of which are in Heron's deck. All the estates have been trashed, and the only treasures are the 2 golds in Heron's deck. Yep, it's all actions. And we're still actions shy, it looks like, of playing all the nomads. Unless that bottom card is a village that I'm not aware of. I don't think it is. Oh, well, now Hamlet doesn't do the trick, does it? Because you could draw the Hamlet, but then you have to discard for the Hamlet's effect, and then you still would be able to play them all. Flag Bearer and 2 more Heralds, I'm guessing. So Show has one, two, three, four, 5 Heralds right now. Getting those last 2 Heralds will be a pretty big deal, because they'll be worth 3 points each in Show's deck. I definitely think I prefer Show's position here. I mean, if Heron lowers the Heralds, then all of a sudden Hamlet looks like a great pile out. If you don't lower the Heralds, then Show gets them, and that's a lot of points. Also lowering a pile. So I think you got to be thinking about Province soon-ish as Heron, just because the Hamlet Herald pile threat is so large. Surely discard. It's not as sure to me. I mean, obviously, discarding the coppers lets you trash them, but like Heron's been severely overdrawing since they bought the barge way back when. Do they benefit from getting the coppers out of the deck? Mhm. How much money does it take to win here? 20? Do we have 20? I don't think so. The nomads are 14. Flag bearer is 16. I don't think there's any other money in the deck. We're gonna have 16. I'm thinking two heralds on a province. That scores you 12 points. That means you're pretty insulated against an estate pile out, for example. Not even sure if Harold or Heron has enough buys to do that. And then if they can't pile, then the Hamlet pile out, or even the estate pile out actually looks super threatening. Although actually, with exactly 16 money in the deck, be one coin short of threatening an estate pile out, wouldn't you? Because estates normally cost 16, which they have, but there's that one extra debt you'd have to pay off. Hmm. Is there a better sequence of buys that makes the estate pile out more doable? Yeah, I mean, two heralds on a province still looks like a commanding position. Then the Hamlet pile out is a threat. I'm just trying to imagine a set of buys that makes the estates more live. I I don't know that it's a big problem per se, but the downside of Herald double province is with 16 money exactly, your opponent, what do they need? Like two provinces and an estate or something? I guess two provinces and triumphal arch points. Basically, if you're buying six hamlets next turn with 16 money, the most you can score alongside that is one more point off of estates, or two if your opponent buys an estate. Uh, Whereas if the estate pilout's open, then you have to score like what's that, 20 points to be safe from the estate pile out. Yes, I think Heron is clearly just intentionally not trashing the coppers. They had the option to trash one there and neglected to. At least with how they've been drawing so far, that has not seemed unreasonable. Okay, so where are we on actions? We got three nomads, three heralds. Yeah, the triumphal arch situation is just really awkward for Heron. This looks like it's going to be a loss. Um, if Show draws their deck here, six hamlets and an estate will do it. And the annoying thing is, Show has the ability to score exactly 1 point plus take all the hamlets. So naturally, as Heron, you just want to buy one estate to protect from that. But buying the one estate removes the one debt from the estate pile, and now 16 money from Show would be enough to do six hamlets plus two estates, which would still win by one. Oh, they didn't. Oh, they didn't take the Herald's last turn. I just assumed about two provinces. Oh, that's just worse. Yeah, I don't know. But the Heralds are 6 points as well, and they lower piles, which is good for you, and they two Heralds in your deck, which is good for you. I don't like double province at all. Don't think lowering is good for Shohisha. Oh, I think it definitely looks good. You had the points lead, 12 points with a lot of buys. There's no way Heron was piling, and if your deck is better, why lower? Because it puts Heron in an awkward spot of having to score a ton of points immediately. Uh, like for Shohisha, for example, you're capped out on Triumph Arch points already, or once you buy the Herald, you would be. Whereas Heron, if the game goes longer, could easily score 3 or 6 more points, buying some more piles. It just looks like a pretty clear path to a two-turn victory. You take the Heralds, next turn you take the Hamlets. As it turned out, had they taken the Heralds, Heron did not have enough money to even possibly score enough points to protect against the pile out. Show calling Ratcatcher to trash a Nomad. It's too money either way, but doing it this way means you won't need a village for sure to play it, and you lose the Nomads, but you're not planning on having another turn. Alright, yeah, this is a win in hand. Alrighty, game one to Shohisha. What do we got here? For draw, there's Alchemist, or the second and sixth Aristocrats, and I think that's it, which I think makes Alchemist look pretty good at a glance. For villages, there's Blessed Village, Aristocrat, Villa, Contract, plenty of villages, Gondola. For trashing, Transmogrify can trash estates, and Enhance can trash coppers, albeit not very efficiently without a good 2 cost to gain. You have to like enhance a copper into an estate and then transmogrify it. So you're probably living with your coppers for the most part. And then plus buy looks like Villa or potentially Aristocrat. Okay. Got Museum, which incentivizes variety. Woodworkers Guild is like Advanced, except it can gain any action card. So like you could use Woodworkers Guild to open with Alchemist if you wanted. Like buy a villa, return to your action phase, return to your buy phase again, spend a favor, trash the villa into an Alchemist. That'd be cute. I don't think it'd be correct, but it'd be a funny opening. Yeah, they just open with Transmogrifies, which I think makes sense. Yeah, I like the potion as the second four. I think Alchemist looks like it'll be a significant card here. I vote for turn this aristocrat into an alchemist and then buy a falconer. And then Heron doesn't have a potion yet, but can gain one to hand off a falconer. This might be a good kingdom for 4 aristocrats. I think generally the best of the 4 effects is probably the +3 cards most of the time. And so you'd naturally want 2 of them. But if you have 2 of them, you always run one. I don't know, words are hard. You always run the risk of one of them being very close to the bottom of your deck, and then you're just like playing one for +3 actions and being sad. And so often, if you want the +3 cards effect, you need like 3 of them to give you good chances of finding 2 early enough one on your turn to make use of it. And I think 3 is often a sweet spot if you want any aristocrats. But here, plus buy is otherwise a little bit lacking. I mean, there's Villa. But you got 3 aristocrats already, you could always throw in a fourth one, and then you've got plenty of plus buy. This kingdom might also just not be strong enough to need 4 buys per turn. I wouldn't be surprised if that's true. You got some amount of gains already with Falconer and Transmogrify. Maybe just like 2 buys is fine with like 1 Villa in the deck. This is a really sad draw. I think this game is mostly going to be about getting alchemists early on, given that it's the only draw. Two in a potion, always tragic. Not always tragic. Always tragic when you're going for alchemist. What's the split? Is it 2-2? Here, yeah, they both have two. We're turning a silver into a second potion. Yeah, I think that makes sense here. Just really aggressively want all the alchemists. You can always transmogrify the potion again later once it's run its course. Although, it's a bit of an anti-synergy here is alchemist plus transmogrify. You would naturally want to top deck all your alchemists every turn, but if you do that, your transmogrifies just never have any targets at all. I wonder if you intentionally only top deck like 2 to 3 alchemists to give you enough to kick your turn off while giving you a chance to find something worth transmogrifying. That's an interesting consideration. Contract would help you win the alchemist split, maybe even more so than two potions, although I'm not exactly sure when you would fit that in. I think Falconer has first five made sense. Relic is a nasty attack. I could totally see taking both of those. I think maybe you should have considered contract over relic. I'm not sure if that's right, but the Woodworkers Guild is actually a really good way to get the alchemists here. I'm guessing the UG is in response to Heron missing both potions. Oh, milling alchemist. I missed that detail. They trashed an alchemist to gain an alchemist. So there were two alchemists left in the pile, and they wanted to buy one and then deny one to syouhisya. And then justice occurred when they failed to find their own potion, and now they're going to be the one to lose the split. It looks like. Good hand for the transmogrify though. Heron did not need both potions anymore, and they take a second relic. Interesting. Gondola. Not sure what we're buying here. Delay the gondola by an aristocrat. I guess you don't particularly want to trash this last estate, even if you could, just because the last estate's going to be worth 3 points. Huh, do you gain another potion here as Shohisha? I think the answer is yes. I mean, obviously you can't buy an alchemist anymore, but top decking 4 alchemists in a deck that's otherwise got one more alchemist down there, or I think one. I actually don't even know how many. Sure looks worth it. You still have enough to buy a province. Yeah, I definitely think. Oh, transmogrify. Interesting. I much prefer the potion gain there. Top decking 4 alchemists just looks more than worth it. Transmogrify is a threat, more so if you're in the lead, which I mean they're behind 7 in points. The big threat with having a bunch of transmogrifies down is you can transmogrify province into province a bunch of times and end the game quickly. But as Shohisha, I don't think you want to do that. Heron buys a gold. It's at least worth 2 points. It's like a farm. Yeah, it is not a surprise that these decks are not fully functional. There's essentially no copper trashing and just the alchemists basically for draw. So these are going to be inconsistent engines. I believe Heron has two relics. Turning this relic into a raider could be a possibility. They've already got the gold points, but raider would be worth two. We're enhancing the gold into a province. Okay, that might be correct. Obviously, losing the gold is kind of significant because you're losing 2 points, but it might be late enough in the game that that's worth it. That's Shohisha, I feel like, is playing like they have a point lead. Like both this turn and last turn, as well as that Transmogrify gain earlier, all suggest they're just trying to empty the provinces as fast as possible, which would make a lot more sense if they were ahead on points, and they are not. So they trashed an estate into a silver, which, unless I'm mistaken, is going to cost you 3 points. Maybe they have more states and I'm not accounting for them. Uh, and that makes sense if they're trying to buy a province, but they Dutch. I don't get what's going on this side of the board.
Sorry, is it somehow possible to see this game somewhere?
Yes, if you log on to Dominion.games, you'll want to add either Heron or Show Hisha as a friend, and then you'll be able to see their table and you can join it, and then you can watch live with everyone else in the spectator chat.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I'm new.
No problem. Alrighty. So we are in the danger zone of Heron has a points lead and has two transmogrifies down on the map, so they could easily transmogrify province into province twice and buy a province. That being said, with alchemists on top of your deck, the odds of finding a province on top are not super likely. Sun's Gift looks like a good boon to take next turn, or this turn, because it doesn't make much of a difference. What is Show thinking about? So they're being prompted on whether to top deck the alchemists, which I would think the answer is clearly yes. Obviously, you're missing out on transmogrify stuff, but at this stage of the game, 3 extra draw is a lot of draw. Okay, I would expect this Falconer to gain a Villa most likely. Looks like he could use the plus buy. And then what are you buying? 8, 10, 12 money if you want it. Does Heron have an estate left? There's one estate in somebody's deck. Yeah, Heron still has an estate. What's a card they don't have a copy of? Hmm. They just want a second estate. And yeah, so this is exactly the hand you want to see as Heron. Is you got a province in your hand, so you can transmogrify the province to empty the piles, and then the rest of the hand is alchemists. Really couldn't ask for a better hand here. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Shohisha's position was fine earlier on. They have a majority of the alchemists. I don't think they played that middle to end game correctly. Yeah, so this is a tough spot. Like, naturally, if you're behind by a bunch of points, there's two provinces left. This would be an ideal scenario to buy the penultimate province and pray your opponent has a dud. But you just watched your opponent top deck all four of their alchemists. So the odds that they dud are not terribly high. I think you probably just buy the province anyway and hope they just have some miraculously terrible draw. Not sure how else you're winning. But yeah, that's game. All right, 1-1. Mm. Okay, game three, we've got Lurker plus Trail is a pretty darn strong synergy. You buy Lurker, you trash a Trail from the supply, it plays itself, so you get +1 card, +1 action extra. So like your Lurker was a village, plus you just gained a Trail for free. So I like that. We got Sculptor, looks strong with a bunch of good fours. Silk Merchant is just a really strong card. Copper trashing looks a little bit on the weak side. Crucible can deal with the states just fine. I mean, it's okay trashing coppers, but not very good. But yeah, this just looks like a kingdom that's going to pile out ridiculously fast. Because all the stuff that you want to do just naturally lowers piles ridiculously quickly. So they both open with Carpenter plus Lurker. Carpenter's doing the same thing. You just play Carpenter, you gain a trail, and then you get to do the thing. I think that makes sense. So yeah, trail's going to be empty in a heartbeat. I expect Merchant to run really fast. Lurker is already going to be a pretty low pile. Villa could run pretty easily. This type of kingdom can be annoying because the incentive I think pushes you pretty strongly towards just like get all the good cards while they're still there, and then you have a deck that's not fully functional, but then pile's already super low, and then you got to start scoring to avoid a pile out, and so you have a really strong kingdom where it might actually, you know, unless the piles break strongly one way or the other, it could end up taking a while because you get to a point where like you're both uh scrambling for points to avoid the pile out, and then you have decks that aren't all that functional. We'll see. Yeah, Sculptor looks great. I think you buy Sculptor whenever you got five. Fleet also looks pretty important and probably something you buy on the earlier side here. Great protection against pileouts. Gain a trail here. No, Crucible. Trail looks pretty natural to me. You're about to play a Slip Merchant. You could have conserved a Villager. Another Sculptor. No, just another Slip Merchant. Interesting. I think Sculptor looks quite good. Hard to spike a province without Crucible, and there's no other trashing makes sense to me. I mean, it's not that Crucible's a bad card, it's just that Trail looked like a particularly good card to gain at that point in time when they were about to play Slip Merchant.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you repeat where did I find the game?
Dominion.games, and then add either of the two players as a friend on your friends list. And then when you go to the auto match tab, you should see this table naturally, and you'll be able to click join next to their name. Or you could just add me, for example. Just add J Nails, and you'll see me spectating it. And if you see my name, there should be a join button next to my name, and then you can join the same table I'm at.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I'll try that.
Alrighty, yeah. That's a pretty early fleet turn 8, but I think that makes total sense. Just looking where the piles are. As Heron, you definitely want to be hitting 5 this turn to get fleet. Looks like we've managed. Nothing interesting in the trash for this Slicker to gain, and trails are empty. Uh, Probably you're just not playing it. Trash estate by fleet. Trash lurker by fleet also makes sense. So fleet means you can't reliably pile out on your turn and know that you've won because you both get to take an extra turn. But that doesn't mean there's still not some incentive to pile out. Like if you can pile out with a points lead, well then you guarantee you both take one more turn, where presumably you're at least marginally favored if you're ahead on points. Whereas by contrast, if you let your opponent pile out, well they got that turn, plus you both got an extra fleet turn, and then you're at a 2 turns to 1 deficit for scoring. So you still would like to be the person to pile out if you can. Yeah, I think Villa makes a lot of sense. We're at the state of the game where immediate value is most important, and Villa gaining a hand looks pretty significant here, more so than putting, say, a sculptor into the discard pile. And buy a duchy? You just kind of want points here. I think the answer is duchy. It's not entirely clear. The biggest downside to buying duchy is you just spend 2 of your 3 coffers, and those coffers might otherwise be able to get you to province on a future turn. I just don't really want to count on having future turns. Yeah, they go for the duchy. So looking at these hands, I have to assume that Show is in the lead here. Sure why that is. Could just be the byproduct of being player 1 in a very fast kingdom. Gaining Villa makes sense given their hand. They had a bunch of submergents to play. And Now what? I'd be looking at the estate pile potentially here for show. Gain a villa, play Silk Merchant. Well, 14 money is a whole lot of money in this deck. Hmm. Win in hand? No, not guaranteed. You got to factor in that they both get a fleet turn. So what if, let's say, I don't think you can do seven estates, can you? Sculptor gains an estate. Yeah, I think if I could pile out with seven estates, I would do that because that's also a ton of points. And maybe it'll be possible this turn, but it's not in hand yet. If it is, it looks like they're probably going to trash copper into something and then buy a province. I think I like lowering a state. It's not clear. You could take a lurker because that's the lowest pile. And if you have a point lead, you'd naturally want to lower that. But there's plenty of other piles that are already low. Vagrant would be the most innocuous in your own deck. Estates potentially it scores you a point and also makes the estate pile out easier on a future turn. I think either estate or vagrant are the two choices here. They go with estate. There is a big downside in leaving a soap merchant in the trash, which is if your opponent has a lurker, they can gain that. And then on top of getting a soap merchant, they're getting the coffer and villager, which might matter more at this stage of the game. Ooh, that's an interesting buy. Two diplomats. Surprisingly long-termist play there. I don't think I agree with that. I mean, I think Show is still certainly in the lead, but that was an interesting choice for sure. Mhm. So Merchant still in the trash. This lurker will have good stuff to do. Although, perhaps this show you're considering just trashing the carpenter from the supply. Yeah, so they're going for a win this turn, in which case maybe the lurker ends up trashing a carpenter. That might be even more efficient. They can't get their hand size small enough to make this diplomat activate, but that's not a big deal. Oh, so that play looked good a second ago, but given that they're piling carpenters, lurker trashing carpenter looked more useful because that's like effectively 4 money that you don't have to spend now. They're making a number of surprising decisions. So if you trash the trail, you have 3, 7, 10 money. Yeah, I think just trash the trail and buy carpenter plus duchy. Would have preferred lurker just trashing the carpenter and then you could spend your money on probably a province. Yeah, I like carpenter duchy. You both get one more turn. You got 4 extra points. That's a lot in a kingdom of this quality. Alrighty. Not even clear Heron's going to score enough to take a points lead. Barring a phenomenal draw off the top of this deck, this is about to be 2-1 for show. Lurker does not cut it unless, is there a Soap Merchant? No, there's not. Oh, there's a Villain in the trash. That's actually a pretty good gain. It might be, actually, that's even better gain than a Soap Merchant at this stage. Still not enough. I mean, a Duchy will get him a point fleed, but Shohisha has a Duchy in hand, which will be enough. I don't know why they gain 3 estates over a Duchy. I don't think it makes much of a difference. Okay, 2-1. Game 4. What have we got here? Villages look a bit lacking until Rapid Expansion activates. Once that's active, then any cantrip that you buy is like a village effect next turn because it plays for free. And what triggers that? Key House? Not the fastest of the Omen cards. Oh no, Taskmaster is a village. So we got Taskmaster as a village that I didn't notice. And then aside from that and Rapid Expansion, the other village would be Sauna Avanto, which neither is a village on their own, but if you have Saunas and Avantos in your deck, and you play one Sauna, plays an Avanto, which plays a Sauna, you spent one action and you got 2 actions back. So basically, if you can chain in Saunas together, you get N-1 village effects. So there's a number of ways to get villages here. For draw, you got Stowaway plus Avanto. There's also the rewards pile, which has 3 villages in it, plus 2 draw cards. Trashing is Enlarge plus Develop plus Sauna plus Secluded Shrine plus Buy. Any action card can be plus Buy the way of the monkey. And there's also Domain and Renown in the rewards pile. So you got a bit of everything. What's the priority in the early game? I'm not sure. Yeah, Rapid Expansion plus Joust is a little bit sad. Joust would normally gain you a reward to your hand. Rapid Expansion is not optional and will force you to set it aside and play it next turn, even if you could play it this turn. Heron goes for the Secluded Shrine. I don't think I like that very much. I don't know what I do like. I don't think it's that. Still thinking about it. Sauna Silver looks alright, albeit boring. Um, Gives you a chance at trashing is okay at hitting 5, and then you take an enlarge, I mean that gets you a few more saunas, and then Sauna Avanto becomes a possibility. Uh, I could imagine something like maybe opening with a Stowaway and trying to spike a good hand for trade, where you like trade 2 estates into silvers and then add a sauna. That also looks possible. Something with develop maybe even. It's hard to hate the secluded shrine when it's unclear what I think the best opening is. I don't think it was high on my list. Heron goes for sauna plus secluded shrine. Kohisha goes for silver plus engineer. Both of those confuse me a bit. I'm guessing the engineer plan is focused on getting a majority of the saunas, perhaps. You pop for 2 saunas, you win the sauna split at the cost of not trashing. Uh, Intriguing. That makes it more perplexing. Why did Heron buy an engineer? There's only 1 sauna left in the pile. I don't know what that engineer is doing. Maybe Heron is going for stowaways? Or taskmasters, perhaps? Yeah, this is a kingdom with a non-obvious early game. It does feel like Sauna Avento looks pretty decent here. There's a number of indirect paths you can take there. Like both of the players opened with an opening that seems geared towards the Sauna Silver plan that didn't just take Sauna and Silver directly. Syouhisya takes a tea house. Why do you want a tea house? Plot thickens. Say stowaway, probably. Yep. So Heron could gain the last Sauna and buy the first Avento here, which I think looks pretty good. You could also consider trading an estate and a copper into two silvers. I think Avento looks better to me. They gain a silver. Ah, I don't think I like that. So the silver gain I think makes sense with the secluded shrine. That part's fine, but you could have popped the engineer, gained a sauna. I guess then you're out of gains. Yeah, I don't know. That was an awkward turn, I suppose. Um, I think I probably would have just gained sauna Avento. Obviously, you would like to gain the silver there as well. No, actually, I'm back to saying probably the proper play there is gain silver, trash two, gain sauna, gain buy Avento. And the one reason I balked at that was I was thinking, oh, well, if you trash your engineer, there goes your only gainer. And that is something to watch out for in Sauna Avento games. Is especially I feel like the kind of like new to mid level play is like I just keep clicking Sauna Avento over and over because the pile feels really strong. But then at some point I've got a deck that's like super thin because my Saunas have trashed everything and I'm drawing my deck easily with all the Aventos, but I never added any gains, and so there's no payoff to my deck. And you might worry that if you trash your engineer, well, then your deck has no more gains, and you're stuck in that kind of single gain loop, buying one Avento per turn. But there's still Way of the Monkey. So even if you trash your engineer, you could still be buying two things a turn in that scenario and be fine. Like you could buy Avento plus engineer next turn, for example. Mhm. All right, we have mini terminals. That's okay, because stowaway is only kind of terminal. I assume you gain either a stowaway or a taskmaster here, and that lets you play this stowaway, and then you're doing all right. Still like popping the engineer and getting that last sauna, and then you buy Avento. Nope, still not doing it. What are we buying instead? Oh, we're undoing another joust. So Heron clearly has rewards on the brain, which don't look bad here. I just feel like an Avento would help you to get to 8. First reward here, question mark. I think depends what your hand looks like. I think a very common situation is you look at the rewards pile at the beginning of the game and you're like, wow, I want Renown or something. And then you get to a situation where you found your first province and you're like, this precise moment, I really need a village effect. And then you gain a courser. or a coronet is not uncommon. That Taskmaster ain't doing a whole lot. These decks just don't feel like they've come together. I don't think I like either player's path here all that much. Ooh, interesting. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I was expecting them to just trash one and buy a five, but trashing a bunch of coppers is probably better. I think I would just buy a Harbinger here. Bit of a nothing buy, but really just next shuffle, you really want to line up your joust with your province. And none of the other threes are proactively helping you with that. And Harbinger is the only one that doesn't really get in the way. And it potentially helps if, like, let's say you draw a dud hand that has your province in it, and then next turn you could use your Harbinger to top deck the province again and play the joust. There's some scenarios where Harbinger does a little bit more than nothing. I'd be afraid of buying a Stowaway, which is the other card that could potentially help, just because you might be activating your opponent's Stowaways, which would help them a lot. Harbinger lowers chance to have Stowaway in hand. That's true. It's not strictly better than nothing. Uh, there could be scenarios where it maybe is a minor impediment. I think it's still better than nothing. They buy an engineer, which I don't think I like very much. I'm not sure if the debt's going to matter because you've already got the province and the joust in your deck. It's just a terminal stop card, which potentially gets in the way. Okay, Sauna Avento. Taskmaster is actually quite bad here if Heron ever wants to go for Renown, I just realized. That is true. If you play Renown from the rewards pile, then the only cards that cost 5 for Taskmaster purposes would be cards that initially cost 7, of which there are none in the kingdom. You could still technically keep them alive. What you'd have to do is like develop a gold down into a 5 every single turn before you played your Renown, and then play the Renown and then buy whatever. It would be possible. Okay, what are we gaining here for Heron? Not obvious to me. But yeah, with the Taskmaster, it's probably not Renown, is it? Coronet? I don't know. I was complaining about Aventus all game, and they finally both bought one when I wasn't paying attention. Okay. Um, I should know what the bottom 6 cards are, and I don't recall. I feel like Heron's going to draw anyway, in which case maybe Domain is the answer. If you could play Domain, gain a gold, and still draw back around to play the gold, that looks pretty good. They go for Courser. Okay, but they had less draw than I thought. Maybe Courser was correct. So I think you play this Sauna normally, you draw the Stowaway, you play the Secluded Shrine for plus buy, and then you buy a Province and another Duration card, which can trigger the Stowaway for next turn. Or alternatively, you could play the Secluded Shrine normally, then buy a Duration card, and trigger the Stowaway playing his way of the Monkey to get plus buy back. But then you're still not gaining a treasure this turn, so that would kind of defeat the point. This just seems worse to me. Because, I mean, I guess you're getting the Scooter Trine out of the deck, but you could have triggered the Stowaway for free. Alrighty. What is show gaining? Renown. Yeah, I think Renown is the strongest one in the abstract, so there's a lot of pressure to get it, partly just because you want it eventually and you don't want your opponent to have it. But, show is taking a hit this turn in terms of not drawing their deck because they gain the Renown instead of, say, Coronet, which would let them play on. That is the give and take. And then, are I buying two Aventos here, perhaps? Yeah. I expect Domain here as one of the two gains because you want the plus buy. Obviously, you could use Way of the Monkey for plus buy, but Domain's a lot more efficient at that. And then I'm not sure what the other one's going to gain. I guess you draw here first and then see what you need to pin in your hand. Like if they don't draw the gold, then probably the answer is going to be House Carl to draw the rest of their deck. I think the answer is just House Carl. I'm looking at that gold. And then, oh, interesting order. I guess it's not going to make much of a difference. I was going to say you could play the engineer first and gain something. Very interesting order. Why aren't you? What are you doing? So if you play the engineer before the joust, you could put something in. Like they could have drawn the stowaway for free. Why aren't you? Why don't you want to play your stowaway? Even if you like, maybe you're thinking, I don't want to play all of them for draw this turn. I want to have like a balance of 3 and 3. That's fine. You could play this one for plus buy with monkey, and then play the other ones for duration draw if you wanted to. There's really no downside to do it in the other order at all. At a minimum, they're passing up on one coin to buy, which I mean maybe doesn't matter here. I don't know what they plan on buying. Uh, so you got to be careful about how many provinces you take here because your opponent has that renown. I think one looks pretty reasonable. Does rapid expansion affect prizes? Yes, but there are no prizes in this kingdom. There are rewards. Prizes were the pile that went with tournament, a totally different card from Joust. So the way this works, and this came up at the beginning. I assume you weren't here. Uh, so you set aside a province, you gain any reward to your hand, and that triggers rapid expansion, which triggers on any gain. This effect is not optional. So if you gain a reward to your hand, rapid expansion is immediately going to yank it back out of your hand and set it aside, so you can't play it this turn. It'll play it for free next turn, but you're missing out on the immediate upside. In fact, was this a bad order from Shohisha? Are they about to learn why? Yeah, exactly. What did their starting hand look like? They might be kicking themselves right now. Yeah, look at this hand. They had a Sauna and two Aventos in hand. There was zero reason to lead with that tea house. You play Avento, Sauna, Avento, you're drawing your deck just fine. I think they just didn't notice that. Obviously, the correct order would have been draw your deck, play Joust on Province, gain the reward first, then play the tea house, and then Rapid Expansion wouldn't be active yet, and then you could play that Coronet for immediate benefit. I expect this to be a loss for Shohisha. This doesn't look like they're all that close to winning. And I don't think any number of provinces is really safe here from Heron's deck. I mean, they could dud, but like they got a bunch of stowaways and a taskmaster in play, so that seems pretty unlikely. There are ways around the rapid expansion, but I don't think there are any in this kingdom. Like if you had Tracker, for example, or a card that lets you top deck stuff, both Tracker and Rapid Expansion trigger at the same time. They're both on gain effects. And so, like, if you were going to gain a reward, you really wanted to play it this turn, you could trigger Tracker to top deck your own reward, which stops it from being set aside, and then you have to draw it again, but then you could still play it the same turn. So yeah, Heron can buy at least two provinces plus enlarge a province. And yeah, I think they should be able to do three provinces worth of buys. Like House Carl gives you a lot of overdraw. You can always just like put four silvers in your discard with Courser and draw those. I feel like hitting 24 shouldn't be that hard. Possibly there's also a line where maybe they like gain a develop off of engineer. I think they still have an engineer, don't they? Or maybe yeah, they still have an engineer. Gain a develop off an engineer, develop a gold into a enlarge, and then do the enlarge thing a second time. Huh, would have engineered for an enlarged there, says Mighty Mark. I wasn't looking, but that sounds probably correct to me. If you get another turn, enlarges a lot of value in the last turn of the game. I don't think it's going to matter, but that probably would have been correct. So as Heron, you probably don't want to gain the whatchamacallit. I guess it doesn't really make much of a difference. I was going to say you want to keep the province in hand for enlarging, but you have multiple provinces, so it's fine. Oh, you know what? The silver thing I was discussing doesn't work because all four silvers get set aside from Courser. Agu03 says something. I'm sure the answer is yes, whatever the question is. Yeah, rapid expansion is quite the annoyance here. You don't get your gold, you can't get silvers off of the courser. Um, so I was predicting this to be a win. Was I right about that? The rapid expansion might actually be getting in the way of a lot of the stuff that you want to be considering. Uh, yeah, maybe this is not quite a win. I mean, this should be a winning position for Heron anyway, but it might not be a literal win. Yeah, 6, 9, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So you could buy two provinces, trash a province into a province, which is probably enough to be safe, but not entirely clear. Can you trash a gold and still buy two provinces? I think the answer is no, right? 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 money? Yeah, that doesn't cut it. No, you can. Okay, so that's the play. Enlarge a gold into a province, play two jousts, then you have 14 money, right? 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Play engineer and gain any duration, whatever. And then you can play the stowaways as Way of the Monkey. Play two of them as Way of the Monkey, one of them for draw next turn, doesn't really matter. And then you'll still have 16 money. And I feel like triple province should be enough to be safe. Because that's a true 18 points, as opposed to like double plus milling a province. And you could also get an estate, by the way. So like you could pop the engineer for an estate. And then I think 19 points would be pretty hard to beat. Because you're also already up like 8 points. Double province plus a mill looks less safe. Still probably winning. That line could also gain two estates. Figure out what Agu said. Isn't it better to use it from the tea shop? I feel like something's getting lost in translation there. My guess is they're probably also disagreeing with the tea house gains, or maybe they're defending the tea house gains. Oh, somebody unmuted. Rapid expansion and progress are their own antonyms. Yeah, sometimes rapid expansion is slowing things down in kingdoms with heavy gain and play options. Progress likewise. Heron is gaining a taskmaster. I think that suggests that they're doing the line I was considering earlier, which was there's gaining a duration to trigger the engineers. Or is there a pilot? Maybe I don't think there's a pilot. Is there? Stowaway looks super low. I'm not sure what the other pile would be. Like if you just played all of these for plus buy right now, you'd have 3, 6, 7, 8 buys. I don't think 8 buys does it. Yeah, I think just triple province plus an estate looks good. We shall see if Heron finds that line or finds something better. They're thinking about it. I think it looks like the correct line if they play 2 stowaways is way of the monkey, I believe is the magic number to hit triple province. Um, all right, there's 2 of them. All right, yeah, it looks like they came around. They did pass up on a free estate. I think I would definitely pop the engineer for an estate. Probably not super likely to make a difference either way, but it's 1 extra point. And if you get another turn, you're definitely winning. You've got what's that like? It's literally 8 money set aside already. Gold is 3, huge turnip is 2, taskmaster is 1. So it's literally a guaranteed province. There's no need to have an engineer in your deck. So I would have taken 1 more point, but this should still be fine. Okay, so now what does show need to win here? 1 province gets you to 18. 6 duchies scores you 18 more points, which would get you to 36. They need 1 province, 6 duchies, and 2 estates. That sounds beyond the realm of doability, I think. But who knows? I could be wrong. It does seem to me like just having another engineer in the deck would be a better card than having 2 tea houses right now, probably. Something about Coronet. Coronet is pretty painful on my armpits. I'm gonna guess there's something idiomatic about that I'm not picking up. So what do we say? You need 9 gains here? I mean, this isn't that far. There's 8 gains. I don't know if it's there on money. Uh, oh, that fella from earlier still hasn't found the table. Oh goodness. Um, Heron says I feel like we both missed wins. I don't think that's true. I mean, maybe there was a different play from. We got to start a new table. Um, over to the new server. Hmm. All that. Did I misinterpret that? Yeah, no, they're all even. Where's y'all's new table? There they are. Right, left again. Okay, looks like the next table is up. I have lost track of the score. It is 2-all. All right, what do we got in this kingdom? Uh, looks a tad awkward on the village front. How do you get villages here? Diplomat can be a village if you can reduce your hand size, but there's not a reliable way to reduce your hand size that I can see. Hmm. How do you get villages here? Is it literally impossible? I guess it's not literally impossible. Uh, but unless I'm missing something obvious, I think like the only way you'd get like a bona fide village effect in this kingdom would be something like you play a flagship on your previous turn, then you use that to like double play some cantrip, then play a mountain shrine, crash a card. Now your hand size is 4 cards, and then you can play a diplomat. Yeah, I think Maho was saying the same thing. And that does not sound like a practical deck. Uh, so I think it's functionally going to be a single terminal game then. Folks are pointing out that Fishmonger plus Way of the Pig is a pretty nice interaction. Uh, so just in general, I think shadow cards with ways are pretty good because you can play shadow cards from the bottom of your deck, but you can still play them using the way effect. And if you're getting +1 card, +1 action without having to draw the card first, that is equivalent to like what Laboratory gives you normally. Like +2 cards, +1 action from hand is the same thing as +1 card, +1 action from your deck. And so these fishmongers are like $2 laboratories. They also say plus buy, so you can play them normally to pick up more fishmongers. Um, yeah, so looks like a stack of fishmongers is looking pretty strong. What are the players doing? Syouhisya goes for flagship plus mountain shrine. Heron goes for fishmonger mountain shrine. Yeah, that's a good point. So Heron did this in the wrong order. If you wanted a fishmonger and a mountain shrine on the 3-4 split, what you should do is you buy the mountain shrine turn one, then you pay 3 debt turn one. Then on your $4 hand, you pay off 2 more debt. You're left with 2 money, and you buy your fishmonger. They did fishmonger turn one, mountain shrine turn two, which leaves them with 1 debt to pay off going into the next shuffle. Interesting. So they chose to play the fishmonger's Way of the Pig. Does that trigger a shuffle? I don't think it does. It seems wrong to me. It's tough that they're playing this one relatively quickly, despite it looking to me like a rather uh, confusing kingdom. But wouldn't you rather play the fishmonger for money next turn? Let me think about this. I got to reconstruct the game state from the log. So they oh no, I understand now. The reason they played the Fishmonger's Way of the Pig was because they had 4 coppers in hand and they wanted to trash an estate. And so they're drawing one to hope to find an estate, and it does pay off. Obviously, you'd rather trash estates than coppers early on. That makes sense to me now. Here, I think you pig the mountain shrine, play the flagship, and buy another flagship. Flagship can be good in kingdoms like this, where you have a bunch of cantrips, but no villages. Oh, no, they don't want to play. How are you planning on getting this in play? Why didn't you pick? I'm so confused. So, I don't think Mountain Shrine was the right card to play there, but supposing it was, why didn't you just pig the flagship and get 1 card further through your deck? All the cards on the bottom are jump cards. That doesn't make any sense. Anyways, to return to the point. In a deck full of cantrips, you can add a bunch of flagships, which are going to be functioning like +2 coins, +1 card, +1 action. And all you have to do is like intersperse, play a flagship, play a cantrip, play a flagship, play a cantrip. And then the flagships are going to be like little conspirators, which is a good source of money. The problem with that deck is you have to have a flagship already in play from the previous turn. If you've got at least one flagship in play, then you can lead off with a cantrip, which gets double played. Now you got 2 actions. Then you can play a flagship and play a cantrip. You're back to 2 actions. Then you can play a flagship and a cantrip, and you're back to 2 actions, and so on. But if you don't have a flagship already in play, how are you ever playing a flagship before a cantrip? If you play the flagship first, well, then your turn just ends. So you've got to take one turn off and just get the flagship into play, and then you've got a virtuous cycle going. And if Heron is not willing to do that, they've just got this dead card in their deck. Likewise for Shohisha. I'm, I'm a little confused at what the players are doing here. Certainly getting all the fishmongers looks good, and it seems like Shohisha has done a better job of that. Uh, okay, here we go. Heron's got a flagship down. They need to buy at least one more flagship. Probably double flagship looks good here. Uh, or maybe tools. There's no way gold is the correct answer. I don't believe that for a second. So now you got to pig this, play your flagship, which is on the bottom, and then you'll be good to go for future turns. Just get the flagship in play, then buy like flagship plus tools. This deck is going to max out at 2 buys. Uh, because it's like if you have this flagship down, you're always going to have 2 actions. You play a flagship, play a cantrip, play a flagship, play a cantrip, etc. You get back to 2 actions every time. And then when those 2 actions at the end of the turn, you got to play at least one flagship to set it up again for the next turn. And then you still have 1 action left over, which you can use to play one plus buy card, like Fishmonger for plus buy, or just leaving an action and then having plus buy from Flourishing Trade. Um, and so then you get 1 buy to work with. And so I think the upside of tools is it lets you keep building, like adding flagships to your deck, while also spending both of your buys on provinces or duchies or whatever. Honestly, not sure whether this flagship stuff is better than not playing at terminal. Flagship's not terminal. It takes you have to take 1 turn to set it up, but then once you've got that going, all the flagships are non-terminal and they're not uh, constrained on the number of actions you can play. It just feels like these players were feeling the marshmallow test for a bit there. But like they both bought a gold. Adding flagships is adding like 10 money to your deck with no additional cost in terms of draw or anything like that. Actually, it's the reverse. I was describing the flagship as a like a cantrip. Yeah, yes. The flagship looks to me like clearly the best payload. You've already got a bunch of cantrips that are always available to play. Yeah. Show up a buy there. What am I missing? Oh, from fair. I totally missed that they both have fair. Maybe that makes the tools a bit less necessary. I was thinking we were working with 2 buys. I still think tools looks pretty good, but it's probably too late at this stage to get it. I think it would have looked good like right after you first started gaining the flagships. With 3 buys, it's probably a bit less necessary. Or in this case, 2 buys plus a mountain shrine trash. Did that one player ever get into the game? There was someone who was trying to join earlier and seemed to be having enormous trouble with it. I'm not sure if they ever made it into the match. All right, yeah, it looks like Show's got this one in the bag. I imagine probably a lot of that is just winning the fishmonger split 6-4 looks pretty significant here. Which I do believe their opening was better calibrated for, right? No, Heron was the one who took the early fishmonger. Yeah, I definitely like Heron's opening better. I mean, the unnecessary one dead aside. I guess their turn three was a little bit suboptimal. I understand needing to play the fishmonger as pig here, but ideally you'd rather play it for plus buy in the opposite turn from Mountain Shrine and buy two more fishmongers, and they didn't have the shuffle for that. So on whatever you intend to be the last turn of the game, you can always get a little bit of extra money out of the flagship because you don't need to set it up for the following turn. So you could do like flagship first, followed by Mountain Shrine, and then you're making like two extra money off your flagship. But once you do that, then the whole interaction is not set up for the following turn. Yeah, each of these players just having one flagship each just feels like underplaying this a bit. Interesting that they trashed an estate there over a copper. They didn't need all their money, so I would think the 1 point is likely to matter. Maybe they counted it out and they expect to need the one extra money this turn. I'm not sure. No actions in the trash for these mountain shrines to benefit from. Ooh, that's not good news for Heron. Not at all. So even if they get another turn, they didn't get their flagship down, and so the deck's not going to be fully functional in the following turn. Speaking of not getting our flagships down, neither does syouhisya. Hmm. So we got 10, 12 money here. I was going to suggest double provincing. But they actually can't even afford that. I think you pig them. Let me think about this. What are those bottom three cards? There's a duchy down there, a flagship, and I don't know what the last card is. Probably a copper or something. You could pig the mountain shrine. That last card's a treasure that gives you a two-thirds chance of hitting province duchy anyway, and a one-third chance of getting your flagship down, which would be a really big upside. But it comes with a one-third risk of hitting your one duchy that's down there, and that's really bad because then you have 10 money, which is too short of, or it's one money short uh, of hitting province duchy, but then also didn't get your flagship down. So it's a bit of a gamble. The safe play would just be to trash a copper here with Mountain Shrine and buy province duchy, but then you for sure are going to have a bit of a lackluster following turn. Taking the Mountain Shrine gives you a chance of finding your flagship, which is a huge upside at the cost of potentially drawing a duchy. I think I'm on board with Pig the Mountain Shrine, and then if you don't hit the flagship, you could just buy like double duchy. They go for the safer play, also probably winning. Hmm. Yeah, I think I like the two duchies there. On the one hand, it's one of those situations where like Heron is behind by enough points that it would be totally reasonable to buy the penultimate province because you got to be preying on your opponent to have a dud anyway. Uh, Show just has to find one more money here. Can they do it? Yeah, that'll do it. So they could have bought the penultimate province, but I think double duchy looks better probably because supposing your opponent misses province, well, what are they going to buy instead? They're going to buy a duchy. And so if you're counting on them to miss province anyway, taking the last two duchies also denies them the ability to buy a duchy, and they're getting like an estate next turn instead of a duchy. Makes it easier to catch up. But alas, they did hit 8. I think it's now 3-2 show's favor, going into what could be the final game. Okay, once again, A bit of a lack of actions. Actually, more than a bit here. There's no village. Oh, there's procession. We have one source of villages in the kingdom, which is you could process a forager or a merchant, gaining nothing because there's no four cost actions in the kingdom. Process a seller. Oh, also Crystal Ball. Yeah, I was over some. There are some villages. They're just very awkward villages. Crystal Ball is a village of sorts. I'm not sure it's worth playing with those. You just play like buried treasure, big money with a Ronin or something in your deck. Yeah, I think probably like a Ronin and some buried treasures looks like a strong deck. Oh yeah, actually with Banquet, I believe has a pretty strong synergy with buried treasure. Like turn one Banquet buried treasure, and then you're hitting like 6 money the next turn, and then you could Banquet buried treasure, Banquet Ronin. I think yeah, Koji has the same idea. I think that looks really strong. I was considering initially adding a steward to like trash the estates a little bit and get a little bit thin. I don't even think that's worth it. I think you just spam Banquet Buried Treasure, add like maybe two Ronins to that deck at some point, um, and then go to town. Yeah, I think Shohisha has the right read of this kingdom. I expect them to win this. We'll see if the steward overperforms expectations. I remember playing a Crystal Ball Ronin engine once. That was pretty interesting. I forget if it was I don't think it was for a league game. Maybe it was. I want to say it was for a random ladder match. But the kingdom also had Tiara in it and tools, I believe. And so what you could do is you play your first Ronin, which is you can always play at least one Ronin, and then you uh, play a Tiara on a tools, then you top deck another Ronin, and then your Crystal Ball plays it, and then you draw into more treasures, and then you play like another Tiara and a tools, and you top deck another Ronin, and so on. And then you just draw through your deck that way. It was a pretty fun deck. Obviously, not too often that you're going to see that precise four card combo. Yeah, turn three, and Shohisha has three more buried treasures in play. I don't think the Steward thinning is going to be in time. Interesting that S is not gaining any Ronins. Uh, I think it could easily be correct that you just want to get all the buried treasures ASAP. In a deck that's full of coppers, the Ronin's not going to be quite as useful as usual. In fact, I don't know. Is Imperial Envoy going to be better? Probably not, right? Here, so Ronin is functionally as much draw as a Smithy if you're playing it from a 5 card hand. Imperial Envoy is drawing two more cards than that at the cost of 2 debt. But if the Imperial Envoy is most often drawing you 2 coppers, it's not like clearly better than a Ronin. It's gonna be about equivalent. And Ronin is a card that like guaranteed top decks itself. I What about Double Province there? That felt a little bit premature. Ronin is +3, right? No. Ronin draws to 7. So imagine you had a 5 card hand and you play a Smithy. You went down to 4, you drew 3, you're up to 7. After playing a Smithy, your hand is 7 cards. Now you got a 5 card hand, you play a Ronin, you draw to 7. You went from 5 to 7 cards. I would love to see this Procession Steward deck pay off. I don't think it's going to. I don't I don't know. Um the double province right before shuffling felt I mean it is like a it's like a 36 something card deck or more than that. Uh I understand the incentive is like I'm just gonna take all the points and not bother building. It could be correct, but if I'm just about to shuffle, like that just seems like a good time to add like 2 or 3 Ronins, and then you're gonna be able to play one Ronin in a turn for like the next few turns and hit province a little bit more consistently. So Heron is burning through the processions here, which maybe good, maybe not good. Yeah, the like if there is a good four cost here, like Ironworks or something, maybe. I mean, you're gonna gain more processions, but like if you run out of all the threes, then that's not doing a whole lot. I think Heron just missed the buried treasure banquet thing. I'm still not even sure the procession engine would beat just like Ronin big money without a buried treasure. But for sure with banquet around, the buried treasure thing looks really strong. Yeah, so this will be another province for show. This deck's not going to be super consistent at hitting province from here on out. Like, this deck is mostly coppers, but that's not a big deal because even when you miss province, you're probably hitting five in a deck full of coppers on average, and then you're also burning through the duchy pile. And that's going to make it hard for the player who's building to come back because there's no alt VP. So if you lose the province split, you got to win the duchy split pretty handily. How does H add consistent payload? Does adding coppers with banquet count as consistent payload? I think Heron has to buy a bunch of sellers, process the sellers to get actions, and then turn those into foragers. And then ideally, you're not processing the foragers most turns, you're processing additional sellers. This is a very optimistic engine, to say the least. Forge the stonemason, I guess, and then play Ronin. Now, what are you processing? So as opposed to other shadow cards where it's proactively bad to draw them, drawing Ronin is pretty neutral because like if you waste a draw to draw Ronin and then play it from your hand versus if you play it from the deck, you're drawing to seven cards either way. So there's a bit less disincentive to like avoid drawing Ronin, whereas with most shadow cards, you're trying to actively not draw them. Alright, so we're getting to decent numbers. I don't think it's going to be in time. I would love for this procession thing to pop off. Um, can we get another treasure into the trash? Oh, we got a crystal ball in the trash. Okay. Huh. I think this province is probably going to seal the deal. Like maybe with a good turn here, Heron could have done more. I'm not sure what Show was thinking about here. He's by province. The end. Oh, is there a pilot? Oh, never mind. I'm eating crow. It's a good thing they took a second look at the kingdom because there was a pile out. That's even faster. I think just buying province here would also have won. But yeah, good on them for noticing the pile out. Okay, that's the match. Syouhisya will advance to play the winner of Rubesti and My Castle.